Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective. I got a little bit of a different mic today, but that's because my clothes did not accommodate the usual microphone. So let me just wardrobe malfunction. Just let me fix myself here. But anyways, hopefully you all can hear me. I'm hoping, not sure yet because nobody's on the live yet. But whew. Anyways, yeah, this is gonna be a little difficult because it's in my way. But I don't know, does that work? I don't know. Can you hear me? Does that work? Mic check, mic check. So hopefully. Anyways, I'm going to start out with some cards here, and then we're going to dive into a subject that's, very personal to me because it's my journey. I figure as we close out, or getting ready to close out Mental Health Awareness Month, that I would, just the things. Good morning, T. I just saw hearts floating up my screen, so yeah, so it might be a little sketchy, it might be a little weird, but yeah, so first card, too rad to be sad. What other people think of you is none of your business. Be your rad self. Now, the funny thing, I know it's backwards, and you're just gonna have to live with it, guys, but kind of brought this quote up during therapy this week, but I'll go more into that when I talk about the show. So anyways, so those of you watching, can you hear me okay with the mic? Because like I said, the other mic I had didn't really, I suppose it could have, my blouse could have accommodated it, but anyway. So anyways, too rad to be sad. What other people think of you is none of your business. Let's see. Home isn't a destination, it's a place that exists in your heart if you allow it to be. So, home is where the Wi-Fi connects automatically. Remember, I made these cards and most of the quotes on the back, unless I directly quote somebody, so just bear with it. Home isn't a destination, it's a place that exists in your heart if you allow it to be. Good morning, Sammy. Good morning, older sibling. Here's a toucan. Toucan. It's a toucan. Toucan meaning, communication, showy, showmanship, need to be seen, good fortune or luck. Ooh, good fortune or luck. That sounds like a good one. It is time to step out of the shadows and be seen. Let yourself shine. Stage fright, fear of public speaking, call upon the toucan totem to see you through. Because they squawk, right? And they are the cartoon emblem of Fruit Loops. So, I know. Coconut. Coconut meaning, considered a fruit of the gods. When one smashes a coconut, it is the equivalent of smashing the ego, which gives way to inner purity and knowledge, symbolized by the white fruit. Let go of fear and embrace your life. So there you go. Let go of fear and embrace your life. I think that's a great message for anybody at any age, at any time. Thank you, older sibling, for letting me know. So, now that I got some people on, like I said, I know that over the course of the Aloha Perspective and what was previously known as the Daily Vibe, former FKA, right? Formerly known as, I've talked about my mental health, but I've never really dove right into it and really just talked about it. So, you know what? I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't realize. Somehow I smudged my glasses. I know. It's always a thing, isn't it? It's always a thing. So anyways, I know. I think I'm procrastinating or whatever it is. But I didn't even do makeup today because I was just kind of like so beside myself about talking about this because I don't, despite this show and despite what you might think, I do not like things being about me. I do this show because I know where I've been, I know where my mental health has been, and I know where I'm at now. And it's still a work in progress. But you know what? I think every day of our lives, right, is a work in progress. I think every breath we take, every okay, now I got the police in my head. Thanks, Sting. But anyways, all right, this is how it's gonna be throughout this whole show because I'm a little nervous, but I don't, believe it or not, I share a lot of my experiences, but I really don't like things to be about me. When attention is focused onto me, I get a little squirrely, I get a little nervous and I get a little weird about it. And I mean, we all like the accolades, we all like the attention, but for some reason, I do better in group settings. Like if a group were like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But by myself, when the spotlight's on me, it's kind of like, so I get a little nervous. In fact, the other night, we, we were at a show for a friend, and it's one of the kids that Laura managed when they were all younger, really, but in her entertainment days is what I was trying to say. And he now works for Dr. Phil and Robin, and they were so nice. And Laura's like, "Get in the pictures." Like, I get very shy, and it's like, I mean, I just. Yeah, no. But anyways, I mean, that's just an example. And it's not because of who they are. It's just because when I don't really know somebody or I haven't really talked to anybody, I get nervous. And then when it's a good looking guy, forget it. I'm like Raj from the Big Bang Theory. I can't, it's like, what is it? Selective mutism. It's like, I can't talk, but no wonder I'm single. But, anyways, I'm sidestepping here and I'm sidetracking. I know. And I'm trying not to, but the show is going to focus on my mental health. This show, I've been kind of thinking about it in my head. I've been, wandering about my mind, thinking about these things. And I wrote down notes because, my brain, it'll get squirrely and it'll try to go in a million different directions. And there are probably going to be people I bring up in this. I don't mean to throw them under the bus. All right, but they were a part of my mental health journey. They stifled my mental health journey. I know I've talked about my issues with my mom several times, but I'm also going to talk about my childhood trauma. All right, so that's a trigger alert for anybody. But I think one of the reasons, I think one of the reasons I don't want people to just hang up the phone on this one is because where I was and where I'm now are where I'm at now. I never thought I'd be in my life, ever. I mean, I'm going back to my dad's for a few days, and I'm probably going back earlier than I need to because I told older sibling, I said, when I'm alone, my mind just starts going. But because I am acutely aware of what it's doing now, I can focus on it. I can sit there and weed out the stuff that I know I don't need. I'm kind of doing data research on myself, if you will. I have a book back at my dad's house. I only brought some of my stuff home because I needed to come home for a few days. But I've been logging my emotions, especially since my Lily May passed away, my little kitty. And well, she was 13, but I really started going through the emotions because you know what, I don't know anybody that does well with loss. And, like I said, I've never had the opportunity to have kids. So, the fur babies are my fur babies. They are my children. And when you lose one, I'm still dealing with it. So I also had therapy this week. So there's a lot of things I want to talk about, and I'm just going to dive right in before I before I ramble on any longer about all this. So two of the things I wanted to point out first and foremost is I have two rules for this live. And the first one is when I talk about my childhood trauma, people tend to think, how did the adults in her life not know? How did her parents not know? And a few years back when I first started, when I first decided that I'm going to start advocating, my mom had already passed. A friend of mine from work had passed. And I thought, you know what? This is something I really need to start doing. Now, I didn't start the show until I think 2020, like the summer of 2020. And that was the first version of it, the Daily Vibe. And then in 2021, in November, it became the Aloha Perspective. So, it's been about a year and a half since it's been the Aloha Perspective, but it's been less than 3 years since I started this. But it was about 6 years ago that I went into some intense therapy. And as I was moving through therapy and as I was realizing, oh my gosh, I joined, I thought that this is stuff I need to talk about. This is stuff I have a gift of talking. I have a gift of writing, and I have a, I mean, as you can see on these shows, it's just me talking, and sometimes I can do it for an hour, and yeah, I might skip all over the place. I might wander a bit. I might squirrel quite a lot, but I have that gift. And, I probably miss my calling as a radio disc jockey, but my point is when we're given a gift, we're sometimes expected to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I haven't shied away about my experiences, but I've never really focused on them. I've just kind of, given them as examples. I've never really talked about how it affected me. I never really talked about how, these things kind of, in a way, destroyed my life for a long time. But I'm going to go back to the beginning. But like I said, when I first decided back in 2018, after I had gone through therapy, I decided I'm going to join Twitter. I'm going to set up a whole separate account just for mental health stuff. Well, it's kind of sadly the lines are blurred now between both of my accounts, and I kind of wish I hadn't set up a second one. But I figure everyone that followed me on my original one, which was Goalie Fans 1973, I figured they didn't want to hear about all my mental health stuff, right? I was a little nervous about it, and I think I was at the time feeling the waters. So I created Shellbell's Quest. And my quest was to help people end the stigma of mental health, to end the stigma of their trauma. And I met a lot of people along the way. And not only did I meet a lot of people, I found people who were in situations just like me. Sadly, some of them, it was their own parents. It was their own, simply like immediate family. But I talked to my dad and I said, look, I'm going to start opening up about my mental health and my trauma. Are you okay with this? And one of the reasons I asked him that is because, his first concern was, well, what if people think, blame me for what happened to you? And I know people would say, wow, that's selfish. She's sitting here saying she wants to share her story. It's not selfish. It's understandable, because the problem is that's where people's minds go first. How did they not know? I was groomed so young, before I even hit kindergarten, that I learned to live I learned to be two different people. Before I went into kindergarten, my parents even told me, if anyone's inappropriate with you, you need to tell us. Unfortunately, and not any fault of their own, because they were sending me out into the world, right? Your little child is going from preschool and out into the world. But, the people around us, neighbors and friends, that, you can't account for the things that are going to happen. And I've never blamed them. In fact, and my dad, I'm going to say this, and I feel bad because I didn't ask my dad if it was okay to talk about it, but he still grapples with it. Like, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you tell me? And it's like, I know. And I don't say anything anymore because I'm healing, but I know I'm his kid. I'm his child. I could have done something about it. This didn't have to last as long. And he's working through it in his head, I think. And I don't think he feels guilty about it anymore, but I think it's still that thought in his head, like, what if? But we can't do the what ifs. I used to what ifed the first half of my life. I what ifed everything. For the last 30 years I've been what ifing. But at some point I knew I had to stop. And maybe it's at this moment right now that I had to realize I can't keep doing the what ifs. The what ifs aren't going to change everything that happened to me. The what ifs aren't going to change the choices I made, the things I've been through in my life. But the what ifs can remind me what is possible. Well, that's a good one. I just came up with that. The what ifs can remind me what is possible. You know what? I'm going to write that down. Excuse me a moment. Let's see. So, one of the reasons I have to write these things down is because I know that down the road, it's not because it's this, profound quote that came out of my head. No, it's because when I start on finishing up this healing journey, and that is my sole intention, I'm tired of being on this journey. But my problem is I have so many anchors into the past that I can't seem to allow my ship to move forward, right? I mean, let's go back to the thing that I came up with some time ago about the Sea of Misery, right? And the island of, oh God, I can't remember. It was the Sea of Misery and the island of something. I don't remember. But when we're in the Sea of Misery, there's this big wall of waves that you have to pass through. And the reason I call it the wall of waves is when you ever watch these movies where people are in these storms and everything, and then all of a sudden, the water's clear. Maybe they're all a bit, banged up, but they're on the other side of this. And everything just feels blissful. And I think that's where I was trying to come from, because I haven't allowed myself to be there. My boat is there, but it's anchored. It's not sailing. And I don't think I realized that until therapy this week. So, again, you know what? I'm squirreling already, and I think part of it's because I'm nervous. But this is why I made notes, and I need to stick to my notes. So, first and foremost, my rules. My parents are not to blame. I am not a statistic because of them. I know I've had near attempts, but that had nothing to do with them. That had everything to do with the fact that I didn't understand my mental health, and I didn't know how to move away from the trauma and all the memories and all the bad thoughts that kept coming into my head. And like I said, they even told me, if anyone's inappropriate, you tell me. But like I said, I was groomed so young. And I can say that to people all day long. But I want people to understand where I'm coming from on this, because this is my story. So, and you don't get to say anything about my parents in my story. Hold your judgments. This is one of the reasons why people don't get better, because people either don't believe them when they say something, or they judge the person, the people that they feel should have been protecting them. My parents protected me the best way they knew how. They just thought I was shy. They thought that me being kind of introverted was because I was shy. They had no idea what was going on. Because around family, I was fine. It's like, ooh, I'm a kid. So, and number two, I'm going to talk about my therapist, and I'm going to talk about the intense therapy I ended up going through. A lot of people, there was a time when people were saying, oh, the therapist just planted that in their head. And some therapists might. Okay. In every profession, there is someone who has nefarious motives, all right, or who do not have the best interest of the people around them, in their sights. But I've been fortunate. And I would say that this is not to knock the psychiatric profession or, field, because they've done so much work. They've helped so many people. You cannot let one bad apple spoil the barrel, okay? So you just gotta pluck them out and move forward. That's why I always tell people, look, sometimes intake can be such a pain in the ass. But if you are not getting along with your therapist, or you don't feel like your therapist is giving you all the tools that you need to move through whatever it is you're going through, get another one. You are not beholden to that person, okay? Get a second opinion. They just may not be your fit. Me, I gratitude. I know that's not for everybody, but I gratitude. And all I'll say is I'm so happy and grateful that I am placed with the right person for my mental needs, or for my needs, period. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And some people might think that's hokey. You can pray, dear God, please, send me to the right person to take care of, whatever it is that I need taken care of. Find me the good fit. So, I put in my notes, my therapist did not plant memories. They gave me the safe space to unlock doors that I locked a long time ago to cope. So, the way I like to see therapists is if you get a very good one, and by that I mean someone that resonates with you, they are going to be the tour guide into your deepest, darkest recesses. They're going to be the ones holding the torch, holding the candle, holding the flashlight. Okay? I know, in some countries the torch is the flashlight, but I'm thinking the big fire Indiana Jones kind of torch. But, they're the ones guiding you through the darkness and letting you know, hey, you're not alone. I'm here. And while they're at it, they're also showing you, hey, there are people around you that may not necessarily understand what you're going through. Some might. I've been very fortunate in that sense, that are going to guide you, that are going to be there to support you. that are going to stand behind you when you want to turn and run back to the past and just stay there and just huddle yourself in a corner because you're afraid. They're going to help you build this wall behind you so that you don't keep going back. You might have a memory, you may have a moment, you may have a moment that lasts a few days, but they're going to give you the tools, they're going to give you the courage to move forward in your own story. So, also, before I get into the meat of all of this, I want to remind people, I saw it on the news yesterday, but I want to remind people that there is a suicide hotline. It's not just, the 1-800 hotline anymore. If you have a cell phone or you have a phone and you are feeling a little not so great, dial 988. I had a friend, I've never known anybody until one person that I knew used this number. They were feeling very suicidal while driving and they pulled over, called the number, and this was before 988 was implemented, and this person talked them off the ledge. These are trained people. Okay, these are trained people to help guide you through whatever it is that you were going through in that moment so that you do not become a statistic. Okay, your family loves you, people around you love you, but one thing I don't think people understand about suicide is it's a very personal choice, and sometimes it's a very spur of the moment choice. People do it because they're tired of being in pain. And in some cases it's physical pain. In I would say the majority of the cases it's emotional pain. It's just you're so lost in this darkness, it feels like you're falling and falling and there's no bottom. And I think that's why sometimes people make that choice. So, we shouldn't judge them for that. I have another friend that sent me an article last week about this guy whose brother took his own life, and the guy was saying, but if you feel like this, just think positive thoughts. And you know what? He was coming from a good place, but I could completely see that he didn't understand. And it's not his fault. It's not his fault at all. A lot of people don't understand. Even people with mental health issues don't always understand. But there are people who, do. For me, I've had several near attempts, but I know people who have attempted. Older sibling who allows me to share her story, getting full access to the volumes. That is Laura. Had two, attempts under her belt. Not near attempts. I mean, literally, she tried. And she lived. And I asked her the first time when we talked about that, and I said, what was the worst part about that? And she says, and I didn't mean that to sound insincere. What I meant was, how did you feel when you woke up? And I'm thinking in my head, oh, good. She's going to say, I was grateful that it didn't work. But here's the honesty of it. She blew me away when she was very, very honest. And she said to me, I was so upset because it felt like there was just one more thing I couldn't do right. Now, a lot of people will wake up and say, because it might be that flashbang moment, right? Where it's just like, oh, I can't handle it and I'm going to do this. But, and they wake up thinking, oh, thank goodness this didn't work, because, who knows what's going on while they're out, while they're sleeping, while their soul is wandering around the world thinking, whoa, it's a good thing I didn't do this because I have a lot of work to do here. But with sibling, it was, I failed at one more thing. Twice. And you know what? I don't like when people fail because I like people to succeed, but I am so grateful that she failed twice. Because she is the reason I got better. And I know people will say, no, only you can get better. She opened the door for me that I didn't understand, that I didn't know about. And I might get a little emotional, and I'm sorry, but she saved my life. My best friend, when I was younger, saved my life when he called and would not hang up the phone. And it made me put the knife away from my wrist. And he checked up on me. But as an adult who was really, really struggling with my past and my mental health, she saved my life. She saved my life the second time, but She gave me my life. She gave me my life. Um, we get stigmatized. Okay, when I was young, I was abused for several years. Um, People have asked me, that don't really know me, or even people that have, who was it? That's not for anyone to know. That's not important. I can tell you, it was not any true immediate family. All right. It wasn't my parents, not my cousins, not my aunts or uncles. Just, it's not anybody's business who it was. Um, I simply just say it was a friend of the family. And that's all people need to know. My mom knows, my father knows, and a handful of my cousins know. But those are the only people that really need to know. And the handful of cousins really kind of started when I first started opening up, when my parents found out. I had planned on taking it to my grave. Like, legit planned on taking it to my grave. And then during a class in high school, it fell out of my face. It fell out of my face hard while it was streaming down my face. And all I said was, I know somebody. And my teacher took me outside and she said, are you okay? Who is your friend? How can we help them? And I'm all, it's me. But I didn't want them to know. And I was sophomore in high school. I was 16 years old, and the abuse had ended had ended years previous. That person had gone away. And so, but I didn't realize at that time that I was like a volcano, just shaking and ready to erupt. But, I never really got the therapy. My mom asked me if I wanted to still see the counselor, but I think I was just afraid of, because, she said, you and I can always talk about this. And I shouldn't have listened to her because we never really did. We talked about it that night. She asked me some questions and then we hugged and I'll pray for you. And God bless my mom. I think my mom thought that she could pray everything away. I'm still certainly convinced that when she was alive, she had the direct line to God. Now she just has direct access to God. But when I finally got some real help at 23, so 7 years later, I finally decided to get some help, and I see a therapist. I went one time, but he opened a door for me. I told him, I said, well, I don't understand, and this, that, and the other, and I couldn't remember a lot of things. There were stories that he was telling me, not divulging names, but there were stories he was telling me about people, that he was treating, and, I think he did it to put me at ease, and I'm like, oh, well, mine wasn't that bad. And he's all, if somebody hurt you without your permission, or if somebody touched you without your permission, it doesn't matter. Because you're all, whatever degree that you're all in the same boat because you've been abused. And I thought, okay, but I asked him because I couldn't understand why I'd just be walking down the hallway. I'd just be walking down the hallway and poof. I'd just be like, bam, hitting a wall. Like, just anger was trying to escape me. And he told me, he's all, you have kept this in for so long that your body and your soul is trying to tell you, you need to get it out or you're going to make yourself sick. And so my body was just involuntarily doing these things for me. But I went and I was looking forward to getting better, and I thought, wow, this is someone that can really help me. And I always made the excuse that I stopped seeing him because he was so far away from where I lived. Truth is, I went home and at a family, gathering, I just quietly told my mom, somebody brought it up, and I told my mom, I said, oh, that's me too. I've been diagnosed with depression. And I said, I'm thinking about going back to therapy. I have the insurance for it, or going to therapy. I have the insurance for it. And the first thing she told me was, shh. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I wasn't ashamed at the time. I thought, wow, I have an answer. I have an answer to why my head is so ridiculously exploding in different directions, why my thoughts are going crazy. And she says, we don't talk about those things. And then, I use this term a lot. Older sibling and I were laughing about it yesterday because my mom had a tendency, about I don't make blank blank babies. And I say blank blank because it's like, fill in the blanks. I don't make fill in the blank babies. And she looked at me and she says, "You need to be stronger." She says, "I don't make weak babies." And I was like, for some reason, it hit me between the eyes that I needed to prove that I was stronger. That I need to prove that I could be someone that she could be proud of. What I didn't know is that my mom actually was really proud. My mom was not very vocal. My father was more of the, cheerleading vocal one when I was growing up. My mom just figured, well, she told me one time, she said, "Well, I just figured you already knew that I'm proud of you." She's all, "I don't know why you need me to say it." And it's like, because I think it's good for people to hear. So if you're one of those parents that think, your children should just know, just tell them, please. It's not going to spoil them. It's not going to make them, just like, "Oh my God." What it's going to do, it's going to reinforce where they stand with you. They're not going to be guessing what you're thinking. Just tell them you're proud of them. For fuck's sake, it's not that hard. If you are proud of them, tell them. Don't just expect them to think that you are. Okay? Because I needed that from my mom. And after we had that conversation, there was a time in my past, I was a pharmacy technician, but I was grandfathered in and I was really good at my job. And I remember my mom opened my mail because she saw it. She wanted to see if I got my certification. And, I was in a bowling league at the time and we showed up and there was balloons and flowers. And I looked at my dad and I'm like, "Thanks." And he's all, "That was all your mom," which means she listened. And I was grateful for that. I was in my early 20s and I was grateful for that because she didn't see the other stuff. Unfortunately, because she said she didn't make weak babies, my mental health went unchecked for several years. About 6 years later, I met older sibling. And I met her through hockey. I joined the Anaheim Ducks Booster Club, the Mighty Ducks at the time. And she was their social events coordinator. So she could see I was shy, but there was something about me that she said just reminded her of her. So she kind of took me under her wing. I got the cool jobs too, by the way. Pays to know people, but I was brand new. But she's all like, "I'm going to take her under my wing." And she told me this later. She's like, "I decided I was going to take you under my wing." And she's become my soul sister. I call her sibling. I know it drives people nuts. In therapy, it's like sometimes I'll call her sibling and then I'll slip in Laura. And I think my therapist gets confused, but it's like I have to draw her a map. And it's not her fault, but it just because I interchange it, right? But most of the time I just call her sibling. That is my name for her. That is my nickname for her. Unless I'm writing her a letter and sending it in the mail, she is sibling to me. And I think it's because we're both only children. And I found someone who understood me. Now, I'm not trying to make this, Laura happy hour. What I'm trying to say is that when we have support, don't fight it. I fought her for 10 years. 10 years. I fought her. More than 10 years, really. She knew I needed help. She could see it. But I was so concerned about disappointing my mom and I didn't want to hide it. I'm not a person that can really hide things. I'm a terrible liar. And I know I'm saying that honestly, I'm a terrible liar. But I was afraid to be vulnerable. And it wasn't just because of what my mom said. Like I said, I love my mom and it's not her fault. My mom grew up in a generation. My mom had a family member, take their own life. And I think back then that's what we thought. And okay, wait, older sibling, oh yeah, I still do fight her at times about it, but I'm getting better. So, you know what? I think you need to see that, older sibling. I'm getting better. I'm understanding. I'm really trying not to put up these walls anymore. I'm really, really trying to learn how to be vulnerable. And that's hard for me. And that, I think, doesn't go back to my mom, but previously. I was vulnerable as a child when I was taken advantage of. And I don't want to trigger anyone. So let's just say that it was as bad as it could get. All those girls that my therapist talked about that I thought I was nothing like, when I went back to therapy in 2017, my therapist gave me the keys to unlock the doors I had locked for a long time. And it started before that with my friend I talked about last week, who's a sex therapist. And she was, kind of, we were bouncing off each other. I was getting free therapy and she was getting practice on how to handle people who've been through, because that was her focus. Her focus was actually studying the abusers. And she was afraid to tell me that at first, but I told her, I said, no, that's great, because I think people need to understand. We focus so much on the people who have been abused that we don't get into the minds of why other people do it, you know? And so, but she was helping me through my stuff, and she started helping me unlock these doors, but I wasn't completely ready to unlock those doors. So I unlocked it just a little bit. I kind of took a peek in, right? Like I created a little peephole so I could look in. But when I went to therapy, because I'm all like, I've got to get all this stuff out of me. And I told her everything I knew, every horrible detail, every ugly, icky, gross, disgusting detail. Because I wasn't just molested, I was basically raped as a child. And, you know, 2 years ago I would have been crying through that. So that's a sign of my healing. But I didn't, I asked my therapist, I said, well, how do I know I'm not making it up in my head? And she says, how does it make you feel? And I'm all, what do you mean? She's all, are you having a physical reaction to it? And I was. My skin was getting hot. I was starting to get itchy, which I do when I get nervous. And I was really starting to feel sick to my stomach. And she says, well, that's your tell. That, she's all, do you think you're lying about it? I'm like, no. And to be honest with you, a lot of it made sense when I started talking, and I was telling her all these stories, like when I was with my first boyfriend, and we were becoming intimate, and I couldn't understand why it didn't hurt, and I couldn't understand why he thought I'd been cheating on him when I hadn't. I was devoted. And then we started putting two and two together, and it was just like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. But I had blocked all those things. I had locked those doors, hoping to never, ever, ever open them again. And when I did, it was like, it's like when you shove a bunch of stuff in the closet and you open it and everything just falls out. Every single one of those items that fell out was all my pain, all my emotions. And I know it's not easy to listen to, but if you're someone who's been struggling with this, I am telling you now, please, 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 do not be ashamed to get help. I'm opening up and sharing my story to help other people heal theirs, because I want people to feel the way I'm starting to feel now. I realize now that what's holding me back, I thought it was fear. I thought it was sometimes the anchor that I'm holding in the sea of misery is vulnerability. We were talking about an event that happened where somebody is just not particularly fond of me. And my therapist said, why does that matter? Do you know the kind of person you are? Yes, I do. Do you think you're a good person? Well, yeah. I mean, I can be a bitch or an asshole from time to time, but I'm human. We all can be that way. Do you think you deserve to be treated and disrespected by this person? No, I don't. No, I don't. And she says, so why do you keep letting them do it? And the thing is, I don't talk to this person anymore. But in my head, I'm giving them that power over and over and over again to take that power from me. And that's why I thought that the card was so interesting when it says, what other people think of you is none of your business. Be rad. Be rad. Too rad to be sad. You're too rad to be sad, right? And I think that really kind of opened my eyes. And I thought, well, wow, I said, maybe that's an anchor. And she told me the same thing. She's all, maybe it's something that's holding you to your past of always needing to please people, always needing to make people happy. I admit, I'm a recovering people pleaser. I am. I really, really am. Because I just always wanted people to like me. But on the flip side, I was also kind of, sparkly and bubbly and buoyant and all that stuff, because I didn't want people to feel sad like me. There was a hole that was building inside of me before I went back to therapy in 2017. And it was like a black hole. It was just sucking the life out of everything. It was destroying everything in its path. I've been very honest in the past about the struggles I've had with sibling when she was trying to help me. I would knee jerk, and I'd immediately go from 0 to 80. She would just say one thing and it would trigger, like, well, why do you hate me? Why, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd pick a fight with her. Because, again, I was storing all this emotion. I wasn't walking around punching walls anymore. I was verbally punching people when I was angry. And that's worse in my eyes, because if you hit a wall, I mean, I'm not strong enough to put a hole in the wall. And I really don't think I'd want to, because I don't want to break my hand. But the point is, when you hit a wall, the wall doesn't give a shit. When you verbally hit someone with nasty words, that sticks with them. And I've had to do a lot of work, and I'm still doing a lot of work in repairing that part of my relationship with older sibling. Certain things I say, or when I get excited, I get loud. That's just how I am. When I'm excited, I get loud. Whether it's angry excited or woohoo excited, I get loud. And I'm trying to repair that part of my relationship with her, because I've damaged a lot of that. I'm grateful that I didn't kill it. I'm grateful that she's still, in my corner. But I've had a lot of damage to fix in helping her see that this is not who I am anymore. You helped me through this, but I've kind of traumatized her in my own way. And, that's something I have to live with. That's something I have to continually make amends for, that when I react a certain way, which isn't bad like that anymore, that she doesn't go on the defensive and think I'm going to lose my ever-loving shit. And why am I being honest about that? Because I have to be. I cannot heal who I am and all my pain if I'm not honest about it. Am I ashamed to share that part of it? Yeah, we all want to sugarcoat it. We all want to say, oh, I went through this healing process and it was ugly and blah, blah, blah. And then we don't talk about what we did to other people. We just let it roll. See, some people, one of the people that don't talk to me don't understand that somebody that I had talked about before, not naming them on the show, but talked about their behaviors, it's because I'd been there. I saw the damage it can do. I was that person. I was, hurting the one person trying so hard to help me through this struggle that I was in. And like I said, I'm grateful older sibling never gave up on me. But that was my trauma. That was my trauma speaking. So if any of you have been through that, if you're a hurt person that hurts people, get the help you need. We shouldn't stigmatize mental health anymore. I mean, we have an entire month dedicated to mental health awareness. But in my personal opinion, it should be a daily thing. To get people to feel comfortable in trusting someone else. To get people comfortable in not feeling stigmatized and getting the help that they need. The professional help they need. To be able to open up to people and not feel like they're going to be raked over the coals because they're saying, hey, I have a dinged up mental health. Oh, you know what? Don't be weak. There's a hashtag on Twitter called sick not weak. And, mental health, mental illness. I hate the term mental illness because, it's just, the word illness, I think, stigmatizes so many different things, right? But it is classified as an illness. Now, if somebody came up to you and said, oh, I had a heart attack, oh, I have cancer, oh, I have, some, name a disease, right, that falls under the category of illness, you wouldn't sit there and go, be stronger, would you? No, you'd say, wow, what can I do to help you? I can be here, I can be an ear, I can be, a shoulder to lean on if you don't want to, to talk. We can just sit in silence. We can go have coffee and sit in silence while you process whatever it is you're processing. But for some people, they come up and say, yeah, I was diagnosed with depression. Oh my God. That means you're weak. You're not strong. You need to be stronger. You can get over it. It'll pass. Whatever it is you're feeling, it's just a moment. Oh, for some people, it's a chemical imbalance, believe it or not. Not all depression is situational. Some of it is just straight up chemical imbalance. Something I found out is when people have a heart attack, or some kind of weird heart thing, or even, excuse me, people who are battling physical illness, a lot of times they're put on antidepressants. And I didn't know this. I found out with Sissy Joe. I said, "Why are you on Wellbutrin?" She's like, "I don't know. My doctor thought it would help me." She's all, "Why? What is it?" And I didn't want to tell her because I was afraid she'd stop taking it. But they were using it for her as an antidepressant. And I made that mistake later. Someone says, "Why? What is it?" And I'm like, "Well, it's an antidepressant." It's like, "Oh." And I found out they stopped taking it. It's like, oh, fuck's sake. Stop it. I mean, when we go through traumatic body experiences, whether it's a heart attack or an illness, like another type of illness, like a cancer or dystrophy or other things, it can screw up your body chemicals, your body functioning. When you're put on certain meds, that can mess with the chemicals of your body, your physical balance. And so this is there to level people out. I am not ashamed to say I'm on antidepressants anymore, because I know it makes me a better person. And by that I mean, there are days when I know, I experimented a year ago and I got off my meds. And I thought, well, I can do this without my thyroid medication because that runs in my family. And I can do this without my antidepressants. I was a hot mess. I was a hot flippin' mess. Not even funny. Totally a hot mess. And then I went back on my thyroid pills because, if you have an out of whack thyroid, that can make you cranky too. But I was trying so hard to balance it, to not have to be dependent on it. And then I told sibling, I said, I thought when I healed, I wouldn't need to be on these things anymore. But then I realized it's, for me, probably a chemical imbalance, because I got back on them and I could start to feel myself leveling out. And so I looked at her, I was crying, I was upset, and I said, I have just come to the realization that this is my life. I prayed on it, and I gratituded about it, and I, leaned in on my archangels who are my favorites, all those things. But the every answer I got was, it's okay. It's going to be okay. There's nothing wrong with you. Sometimes we just need a little extra kick in the butt, right? A little bit extra help. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I have two favorite meds, and I switch back and forth because your body does start to metabolize them differently when it's on it too long. So when I feel one's not working anymore, I switch back to the other one. So my doctor and I have a very good system when it comes to that. But one of the other problems about having a traumatic background is intimacy. And I kind of added that to my list of notes in the 11th hour, because yesterday I didn't do my self-care show. I was really trying hard to process my therapy on Tuesday, because that was rough. I felt great. I told my therapist when I was leaving, I'm like, man, I'm gonna go conquer the world now. And I meant it because I realized that this is the stuff I have to work on, which is one of the other reasons why, that even though I had planned on going back to my dad's today, that I chose to really kind of zero in on that and say, I have got to do this. I've got to sit with my feelings, I got to sit with my thoughts, and I have got to get myself past this obstacle. And it turns out, as I mentioned earlier, as I was talking to you guys, that my obstacle wasn't fear like I thought it was. It was vulnerability. It's being vulnerable, allowing myself to be vulnerable, to not always feel like I need to be in control, to not put up this wall, to not be, all attitude and, what do they call it? Piss and vinegar. I decided yesterday to do just a bunch of self-care tips, and I just posted them throughout the social media yesterday. And one of them that came up was sex and pleasure. We tend to stigmatize these things. We tend to create a certain taboo around them. And I don't think we should. For me, I stigmatized it because that was my trauma when I was a child, and I think because of that, because of this person who, just overstepped their bounds, and really, in a way, when you stop and think about it, what they did to me, they disrespected my family, they disrespected my parents. And like I said, my parents never, for anybody that might be joining, my parents never knew any of this was happening. And like I said, if it hadn't been for that class in high school where we talked about, where we briefly touched on this, I probably would have went to my grave with this. But I don't even know what kind of person I'd be right now. Would I even be here? Would those near attempts have become attempts? And would they have succeeded? But again, that's a what if. And what did I say? The what ifs can remind us of what is possible. And I want to know what is possible in my life. But I think one of the one things that kind of holds me back from really putting myself out there. See, my therapist, no matter what size I think I am, my therapist is convinced that I should be dating. Okay, she says you need to get out there and, and show yourself that you're worth this. And I said, yeah, but people my size and blah blah. She's all, look around. She's all, there are a lot of men who don't care. They just see the woman, or women, whoever. They just see the person in front of them. They just see whoever they fall in love with in front of them. They fall in love with your personality. They fall in love with this light that you shine. And I thought, okay, but then I thought about it, because I just kind of like, okay, and then I left there and I'm like, nope, it's just, but then I thought, what if it's because I'm afraid of intimacy? And then I thought about that yesterday when I was posting the two cards together, and I thought, wow, before I got help, I had been in relationships, and yeah, they had intimacy involved in there, and but it was really, it was different then, because I was coming from a place where I just wanted to be loved, and I would do anything for anybody who I thought loved me. And now I think I'm afraid because emotionally I feel like a virgin. I'm being honest. Emotionally I feel like a virgin. I mean, the fact that I've been single for so long, I could actually be one. But you got to inject humor here. But I feel like an emotional virgin. And I know that'll sound weird to some people, but I was journaling about it last night. Yesterday's card for my card of the day was, what trauma patterns are present in your life that need to be reprogrammed? And that was it. And I thought, ooh, you know what? All I can hope is that when I do find the next person to wander into my life, and the next person that I will probably potentially be intimate with, I have to just trust that everything will be okay. To remind myself that I have a voice. If there's something I don't like, be vocal. If I'm not ready, be vocal. If, you feel like you can be, tell them. That, but you don't have to tell people your trauma. But you can tell them, or you can, for me, I could even say, it's been a really long time, I'm really nervous. It's just something, it's an individual case. It's a case-by-case thing. You have to figure out where you stand with this person. You have to figure out. But, you could just say, oh, because then you think, oh, I'm not good enough, or we come up with all these excuses. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fall back into old patterns and just disappear during the act itself because it's too much of a reminder of the trauma? What if blah, 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 yada, 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 5 billion and 2 excuses. When really what I think it is it's a fear of being vulnerable. Oh, good morning, Thomas. So Thomas says, a lot of men look at the heart of a woman rather than her physical outer body. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. See, guys and ladies or people, it's a man's perspective. So, and that's exactly what my therapist said. So, so that's just reiterating. So my therapist is a woman, but now we got that point of view from a gentleman. So, and I appreciate that a lot. And I think for me, the excuses were just because I'm scared. And I think that's where, when you're in a relationship, you are kind of, if you want to be in a healthy and successful relationship, you have to learn how to communicate. You have to know that there might be times when there's tension. And I think for me, that's where vulnerability holds me back. Because in a way, when you're communicating, when you're open, when you have, you have these tense moments, you feel vulnerable. And what I need to work on is how to feel vulnerable, but without losing my footing in it. It's okay to be vulnerable. I've said this a billion times on my shows. But it is okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to let people in. I wanted to share my story today because, you know, I was somebody just different just 7 years ago. My healing journey really kind of started before my mom passed away. It got, but when she passed away, I went into a tailspin. And then just 10 months later, Sissy Joe passed away, and that sent me farther into his tailspin. And I was like an out of control plane diving towards the earth. And I could either crash and burn, or I could figure out how to take control of how to take control of the plane and pull it up before it hits the ground, before it completely implodes. Or, if you even want to go in a different route, to pull the eject seat. Is that plane the plane I really wanted to be flying in? Or did I want to just, pull the ejection cord and float away and find out, show myself in an aerial view, wow, this is what I can see. This is what I can do to fix myself. This is what I can do to heal. I have one more step, truly. Did you hear my tummy growl? I have one more step, truly, in this healing journey. I thought I was done. But it turns out I'm revisiting an old friend called vulnerability. And that, I think, is my last anchor. I thought it was something that my therapist and I talked about, and in a way it was. Just holding on to that past, having an anchor in that past, and coming up with reasons to keep an anchor there. And I think what I need to allow myself to see is that it is okay to be vulnerable. And for all of you, people out there, period. Thomas said a lot of men look at the heart of a woman rather than her physical outer body. But, on the flip side, period, a lot of people look at each other, the heart of a person, rather than their outer body. And I think that's important for us to remember. Because, like I said, this is going to change, and I don't mean just me, but I mean, period. We don't stay the same. My dad has 1 billion pictures above his TV of me from when I was a kid to when, I graduated from high school, or a baby to the end of high school. And, they're not, there's not like 18 photos up there, but there's quite a few. And I looked at those when I was there last week and I thought, wow, you know what? I look different in almost every single picture. And that's just it. It's finally hitting me now. I look different in every single picture because this is going to change. If you're a good person, what's going on in here, that's going to shine from the inside out. I mentioned earlier that I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Phil and Robin, and on Tuesday at Jerry's show, and because they're his bosses, and when you meet people, you kind of think, because Sibling really wanted to talk to him, and she religiously watches his show, and I was a little shy, but I was like, okay, I'll take your picture, blah blah blah, and I didn't, I was nervous, but Dr. Phil's, he's a tall guy, he's kind of imposing, but super 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 sweet guy, and Robin, she literally glows from the inside out. Oh my God, sorry guys, she literally glows from the inside out. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is because that's where I think you really see people, especially her. People say, oh, well, she just, riding on the coattails. No, she's not. She is a very impressive person. Beautiful from the inside out. And just like, she just made you feel right at home. Right at home. Good morning, baby bear. So, that's how I think we all could be. Let your light shine from the inside out. It was hard for me to be vulnerable today, to do this show, to talk about my mental health. And I know we kind of skipped around because it's only an hour, all right? I could keep you here for 5 hours and tell you my life story. But, seriously, you're going to tune out after about 1.5. So the point is I've given you kind of the tidbits of the things that I've been through in my life. And I've shown you that we don't have to stay stuck in one place. When we open up, what I haven't realized is that I have allowed myself to be vulnerable at times. With my return to therapy in 2017, with my return to therapy in 2023, with opening up to sibling and finally saying, hey, you know what? I have put you through all this trauma. I've done all, I have raked you over the coals and taken you down with me on this crazy journey I've been on. But thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for being there. Thank you for showing me that I can open myself and be vulnerable and ask for support. Not just from therapy, but from people we know. And if you are not a person with a dinged up mental health and somebody comes to you and says, hey, don't dismiss them. Please don't dismiss them. Mental health and mental illness, it's not a designer piece that we can wear. Some people may feel like they have it and then it could be situational. Other people may have it and are afraid to say anything because it's persistent. There is actually a diagnosis called persistent depression or persistent depressive disorder. Persistent. I have major depressive disorder, but persistent, to me, like I said, it's not to minimize MDD, but to me it's like, it's basically what I think everybody has as your foundation. And then there's some people that have things that pile up on top of those. And I just sit there and think, wow, you are strong to get out of bed and still be breathing today. But PDD, persistent depressive disorder, it's gross. And I don't mean it's gross in the stigmatizing way. I mean, people that deal with that, they are so strong to be able to push through that every single day just to get through life. I can't imagine having persistent depressive disorder. I have more good days than bad days now. And I had a lot of good days. I had a lot of, where my good days outnumbered my bad days, but I could always feel that little hole inside of me before I started fixing it and closing it up and spackling it and all that stuff, putting the drywall in. But, it did feel like at some point I punched a hole in me. And like I said, now I'm fixing that. I'm getting it better. I'm learning to heal. And I want to move out of this healing phase and into the phase where I can just help people. Now, one misconception I think people have is, well, you're healed now. Healing doesn't mean you forget. It means you deal with things better. It means you handle it better. It means that on those days where it's really, really hitting you and affecting you and hurting you, that you were able to dig deep and just, ride through the emotions. And sometimes you might spiral, but if you have the tools, you can stop that spiral in its tracks before it gets super bad, which is another thing I'm trying to work on and figure out. So anyways, yeah, I'm not sure I have much more to say. Like I said, I've covered, I kind of gave you the Cliff Notes version of my life, but other than that, I had a wonderful life. I had wonderful parents, have had, my mom, we've had our struggles, but, I wouldn't change a thing about her. And I wouldn't, if I had to live another life with her as my mom, I'd do it. My dad, absolutely love my dad to bits. Every so often he wants to talk about, all these end of life things because he's getting older and it's just like, yeah, just don't die. Just don't die. And you try to go through it with that. But I wanted to share my story about mental health because, even though we didn't really touch on a lot of things, it was just kind of skimming over the top. I want people to know that they can heal their own stories. Like I said, you don't have to come up here and, stand on your soapbox and chit chat, to the world about it. But I have a gift of gab and I have a gift of writing. And if I am able to help anybody, even one person with my story, then it was worth it. A lot of people on the social media, on Twitter that I met that have been through similar situations as me, they shared their story to help other people heal theirs. And I was one of those people that they helped heal through sharing their stories. And because of that, I've been able to open up and share my own. And so, like I said, again, if it helps one person, I think that's great. The other thing I need to work on, going back to the intimacy part, is I have to stop age shaming myself, right? I've been single for a very long time, very, very long time. But I need to stop age shaming myself. I feel like now that I'm 50, it's kind of like, yeah, nobody's going to want me. But you know what? If we keep putting stupid crap like that out into the world, then you're just gonna, what you're putting out there is exactly what you're gonna get back. So put the good things out there, put the good stuff out. Your person, if you have a person, well, I think everybody has a person. Open yourself up. Don't, it's like Thomas said earlier, right? A lot of men look at the heart of a woman rather than her physical outer body. Don't worry about what other people think. All right. And if you're a person who does like someone who's who your friends may not think that their outer body is suitable for you, tell them, you know what? F off. This is my choice. I'm out. You don't get to decide. You don't get to decide for me. Stand up to people. Stand up for what, because you don't know what you might miss. You might miss the greatest thing in your life because you listen to other people. All right. So, and that goes for anybody across the board, however you identify. Don't let people talk you out of a good thing. Sometimes it might just be jealousy. You never know, right? That could be something we talk about next week. We can go into, for the end of Mental Health Awareness Month, we can go into some of the things that people do that just make you want to squirm and roll your eyes. So again, thank you for letting me share. Thank you for listening. Thank you for everybody that tuned in. T, Sammy, older sibling, Thomas, Baby Bear. Oh, and I see Diane's on. So thank you all for joining me on this live and for listening to my story and allowing me this space, because I think that was the first step for me learning that being vulnerable is okay. All right. I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. I'll see you all back here, not back here, but back there in San Diego tomorrow for Aloha Oracle Friday. I know that's not everybody's jam, okay? I know the Oracle readings aren't everybody's jam, but I do want you to know I actually work with Archangel Gabriel when I do these, okay? So he's he's one of my favorites. I got the 4 big ones are my favorites. But, and like I said, look, I got him tattooed onto my arm. So... But when it comes to messages and stuff, I tune into him. So, and if that's not your thing, if you're like Archangel, just look at him as oracle cards, however you want to look at him. So if I don't see you tomorrow, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Have a great, great weekend. Be safe. It's a holiday weekend, so really be safe and take care of yourselves. I will not be doing a show on Monday because holiday Mondays just feel kind of pointless. So maybe I will. But if I don't be surprised. So anyways, thank you, Baby Bear. I love you too. And thank you, Sammy. Sammy says, thanks for sharing your story. Love you. I love you too. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for the love and thank you for being there. For everybody that does want to join me, I'll be back here tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live. All lives are public under Shelley Marie Lucas. I also share them to the Aloha Perspective Facebook page and the Aloha Perspective YouTube channel. And if you follow me on Twitter, you will probably run into me there. So anyways, again, I haven't decided if I'm going to do a show on Monday. Maybe not. If not, I will be back here Tuesday. Okay. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you again so much for hanging in there and for watching, for all your love and support, for all the comments, all the people who made comments today. I appreciate it. An older sibling and all her emojis. So again, be the support somebody else needs and allow other people to give you the support you need. Have a great day.